Hello, everybody. How are you? Happy December 13th. Oh, it's Friday the 13th. Um, exciting. Uh, right? It's Friday the 13th. Yes. Um, I'll skip the whole explanation on why the patriarchy turned that into a bad day, even though it was Venus's day and 13 was a holy number. But moving on. Let's read the card for the day, the 13th. This is from the Shadowscapes deck. Okay, the King of Swords. Okay, mixes things up a little. It's actually really funny because this morning my daughter called me and said that she had a dream about a man speaking to her in Spanish. So that's kind of funky. Okay, so this doesn't fit in yet. It does, but it does. So let me do a quick thing. So first, you may be dealing with a foreign man. You may be dealing with a Spanish speaking individual. You may be dealing with someone who is very thoughtful before they act, who really holds on to their mental processes in an attempt to arrive at wisdom. Now, okay, court cards are never my fave, but if we go through, there are so many symbols on here that are repeated throughout. So first we have the swords, right? That keep coming up. And the swords do what? Oh, actually, you know what I want to do? The first thing I want to do is I want to read her own, she does on her website interpretations of her cards because she does them also as paintings. So give me just 1 second here so I can Google this. Okay, here we go. So it says, like the vertical sword he holds at the ready, and you see there, it's in his hands. He is a warrior king, sword always drawn and prepared to spring to action should the need arise. He carries through with his actions, following the path of the truth that the blade lights for him. He is led on the silent, which is lit up, remember? So this blade here is lit up. So it's like guiding you to the truth. Uh, so he is led on by the silent wisdom of the owl and the shadowy ravens that trail him like Hugin and Mugen, Odin's twin ravens, thought and memory. That's interesting. So those two birds there are thought and memory. They fly away to seek out truths and bring their findings back to be whispered in his ear. The balance of night and day is embodied in these avian companions. Oops, sorry. The shadows of the night descend upon his shoulders, so that's this little thing going on here. A living mantle of porphyry, a color the ancient Greeks associated with royalty. That's this stone back here. At the base of the throne is etched with Da Vinci's, that's that, Vitruvian Man, symbolic of the blend of art and science, of the symmetry in the human body and in the whole universe. So, so I want to go back to the themes that keep sort of coming up. And he may be sort of like a character that interrupts, like we left off here about talking about attracting, talking about listening to your thoughts, making decisions. Now, the sword that keeps coming up again and again, and the idea of duality that keeps coming up again and again, two flowers, two colored sword, the balance of the scales, focusing on one message, being attentive to what you put out there. And and the sword, the reason why the sword offers clarity is because it divides good and the bad, good from evil, dark from night. Is that no, dark from light, night and day. And so things become clear because of the, let's say, separatist nature that the sword is able to cut through the whole and separate one area into the other. And this is a very religious symbol because it was the bearers of the truth always carried the sword. The other thing that keeps coming up here is wings, right? And winged creatures. Wings, 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 winged creatures, wings. Uh, so the messengers of the gods always had wings. And so if we add on to the third element, and then we have a lot of birds, coming up. The third element we also have is listening, right? The ability to listen here, to pay attention to what it is that you put out, listening to your heart, singing a true song. Again, and he himself bears the wings of, he has them as do his birds. So there's a lot of themes that keep coming up. Very much about getting clarity on divine messages trying to come through, or that somehow in separating your feelings about the two aspects and being able to categorize between what is roses and what, using this sword of clarity to split it in half, to separate right down the middle of what belongs on this side and what belongs on that side. What belongs, here's also a second division. What do I want in my life and what do I want, to push away? Obviously, this had a different message yesterday, but looking at that. So the idea of clarity coming through seeing the two. So there's like some sort of duality that needs to be seen. It's coming through on some sort of God-bearing messenger, right? Because here we have all winged creatures. So if you like to pay attention to birds as omen, I would say this is a time. Pay attention to feathers, or things with wings, or thing like flying aspects, because they may be bringing clues into whatever this truth is. Now, the other message that's there. So this is a great time for listening, and that's come up again. This is like we were invited to take a different position here on the sacred mountain to be able to separate ourselves from what was going on in order to get another perspective. And this asked us to be quiet so that we could reflect on what's coming in from this. So it looks to me, and again, I really think this has to do with when that Mercury hits 27 degrees Sagittarius. I think that's what this is all kind of building up to. That in the process, there's some information that's going to keep coming in, or that we're finally going to get clarity on this situation. And everything that's been happening so far is like sort of building up to that. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is that here we go from the ace to the king, right? So the sword is still there. The birds have multiplied. And the snake is, the snake has turned, which is frequently a signal of temptation, has turned into the wise owl. So, my question is, where have you been tempted? Like, I think it's kind of about overcoming whatever this temptation is, or using what you've learned. Like, whenever you start to see the difference between the roses and the daisies, right? Whatever that situation is, could be a person, could be a job, could be a house, could be anything. Like, when things start to become clear on the true nature of what it is that you're looking at, right? So it's either going to become, and this is the sword that's being given to us right now, whatever becomes clear that this is actually daisies and not roses, and that roses are something else. Our ability to to remove whatever temptation that brings is what leads us to this wisdom, right? So I was talking yesterday about like if you keep settling for daisies and you want roses, that's never going to happen. So it's kind of like also like a test of, can you get from here to here? Can you turn this snake into a wise owl? And it seems to me that with the messages here, it's like the universe is trying to send us, even with the angel Gabriel. I mean, look at all these winged creatures here, you know? They're all over the place. So it's trying to come through, and winged creatures to me says, you know, Mercury. This information is trying to come through to us. We need to pay attention to it. And this is, you remember I said, you know, like listening is a theme, because this card's kind of been like the odd man out for a little bit. It's imperative that we spend quality time with those we're in significant relationship with, listening and talking to the other. And so I think that's actually one of the other things, is like part of determining what is daisies and what is roses is going to come through by spending time and listening to it. But listening not passively, listening very actively, right? Like this looks passive, but she's very focused on what's going on in her mind, because that information is going to clarify what that sword is. So yes, whatever you're on the fence about, or, you know, it's like, I keep getting this, but I really want this. It's almost like you have to move towards it. And this commitment idea keeps coming up again and again, also in the readings. Commit even to the mistake, in quotes, right? Because what it will be revealed by listening and talking. So gather more information, get as much information as you can about this indecision. And the more time you spend talking with it and actively listening to it, the more you will understand if it's in line with this version of you. And look at that little king right there, you know? So that's kind of like the transition that happens here from the Ace of Swords to the King of Swords. And, you know, this is the king of singing over here. Information will become, we have to actively be open to receiving it by going towards whatever these two things are. You know, if it's a person that you're like, I don't know, is this gonna be another one of my past? Remember, because this is thought and memory. And thought, he sends thought and memory out, and they bring back information that they whisper in his ear. So you want to send your thought and memories out on a fact-finding mission about these two aspects that you're undecided on, and spending time with it so you can get to the bottom of, is it really a daisy or is it really a rose? You know, what's at the heart of that flower? And then actively listening and taking a step back on the information that you've gotten in order to be able to make a very wise choice that you can then, after you've received your action, you can or after you've received your information, you can very actively and wisely take action on, but not as a little snake, you know, as a king, or as like, it's kind of like a chicken snake. So not operating like this, like trying to move around the situation, but with clear wisdom, knowing where you're going, having considered both thought and memory, and those are very interesting, bringing the universe and the divine into balance for your, just so that you can sing your canary song. Okay, now we'll see how this King of Swords plays out tomorrow, got to admit that was like out of left field, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, the themes are all there. We've got these birds, the swords of clarity, swords of separation, justice, etc., etc. So, like I said, uh, pay attention. Go towards the thing that's confusing you. Get as close to it as you can, and listen. That's the only way you're ever going to find out, is if you commit to discovering what it is. Because then you even get rid of like any doubt, like, oh, should I have? So, whatever the question is that's posing any sort of indecision, get as close to both pieces of that, and understand what it's really truly made of, so that you can make a very wise decision that will happily play out for you for the things that you want for yourself in the end. Okay? I hope you enjoyed this. I will see you tomorrow. Oh, tomorrow is my Dutch deck, so we're going to have to translate that live together uh, on camera. Okay, guys, have a great night. Take care.